Hello all, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to talk about the example essay number 2, which you will be assigned to read and participate in the next complex book entry. You do not have to cite the source because it's not published, so just do the quotes and the paragraphs for this one. I do want to talk a little bit about what this essay is and how you might think about it as you're reading it, because I do know that reading this example might help you all a lot when you're trying to form your own. So notice that when you're reading it, I want you to think about what the thesis is. If your thesis doesn't necessarily have to go at the end of the first paragraph, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. Your thesis also doesn't have to be necessarily one sentence. It can be a little bit more. Your thesis should be like a main claim that you're going to be supporting throughout the rest of the paper. So ideally, out of a 3 to 4 page paper, it should be somewhere on the first page, no later than the beginning of the second page. And the longer your papers are, and the more you can spread them out. So if you're doing just a smaller paper, you want to be a little bit earlier because you want to have more space to support that. Remember, your whole entire essay is analyzing how your news article is persuading an audience to do something or think about something. So you want to do a rhetorical analysis. So notice in the beginning of her paper, this person's paper, this is a paper written by a previous student. She starts off kind of talking about what the article is about. So the first paragraph talks a little bit about the context behind it. It's not necessarily a full summary, there are parts, but she is setting up the context that the audience needs in order to understand the thesis. So as your paper, one way to introduce a paper is going from kind of broad to specific. So you can discuss the context behind what the article is about. You can discuss maybe like the audience. She's talking about the parents because parents are really important to her paper and her thesis. But in general, really wanting to think about how she's building. So looking at this example. Her thesis is somewhere, I'm not going to say exactly where because I do want you all to kind of think about that yourself. Somewhere at the end of her second paragraph, she does build onto it on the first and the second, so it's somewhere at the beginning of her very second page, and her first page, and so it's kind of over here, and she is, and then what I really like about this paper, and there are some aspects of this paper that you need to revise upon, so when you are reading this, look at it not only as like a perfect example, because there's no such thing as necessarily the perfect essay, but do ask yourself, if you were in her peer review group, how would you respond? So when I have face-to-face classes, when I'm reading the example essay, one big question I like to ask is, read this and then take a few moments to write down, if you were to give feedback to this person in peer review, how would you respond? So when you're reading this essay over, I do want you to think about that because that can help you with your own essay. But I really want you to think about the thesis, paying attention that they are thinking about how the article persuades, an audience. They think about that. And for the rest of the paper, they are trying to support that. And so I want you to pay attention to, how consistent they are. A lot of times when I see the big issue I have a lot of times with students writing this paper is beyond the fact that a lot of people like to talk about the content instead of the rhetorical analysis, that they also might set up a really good thesis or introduction, and then after they start that, they veer off talking about something else. So once you have that thesis set up, you want to support that for the rest of the paper. You kind of want to build off of that. So asking yourself throughout the paper, how does your evidence, how does your information support your thesis? I like to put maybe my thesis on a post-it note and put it on my device that I'm writing on, my computer or something else, and keep reminding myself, asking myself constantly, how does this support my thesis? That's something a lot of people have trouble with. And then also paragraph formation. You don't want to just list everything. So notice how some paragraphs might be a little bit choppy than others, but this is not a 5-paragraph essay. A lot of the paragraphs build upon each other. You kind of see how the beginning leads to the end. It's not, remember, a 5-paragraph essay isn't just here you have 5 paragraphs. It's a list. And so 5-paragraph essay mean you have a list. You have an introduction, you have X amount of paragraphs that just lists each a different point, and you have a conclusion that repeats that. So you can have a 10 or 20 paragraph, 5-paragraph essay, but you really, so the amount of paragraphs isn't what means a 5-paragraph essay. It's the list-like structure of it. So you want to make sure your paragraphs build upon each other. You want to make sure you're specific with your language so your reader can really know what you're talking about. So when you're reading this essay, really kind of look at all of these aspects. How well done is the thesis? How well done is the paragraph formation? As a reader, do you understand everything? Can you understand how every section might support that thesis? If you were a peer review group, what would you state to change? And overall, I do think this is a pretty solid paper because a lot of my students have trouble with this, and she does not write a 5-paragraph essay. She has a thesis that shows how the article is supporting that, is persuading that audience. And overall, she does support that throughout the paper. There are parts of it that she might need to be revised, but she does. So, as an example, she is analyzing how, she's reading an article about how children might be addicted to Fortnite. And she's analyzing how parents might use that article to help them understand their children better and how they might be addicted to Fortnite. And so in her thesis, she's making a claim about that. If she were to write this essay about the content of the article, she would just write about children in Fortnite in general. Okay, so notice that she's not doing that. She's analyzing how parents, the target audience of this article, are being persuaded by this article in that way and how it might be helping them. And then she uses example. So as you're reading this, really read as a writer. Allow kind of these aspects to help you. If you need any help, let me know through office hours. Remember, they're Monday nights. You can look at the schedule for those times. You can email me. Remember, if you need me to look at your own essay, you can email me up to a week before the final draft is due. Definitely come, submit your essay to peer review. But let me know if you need help, because we're not in the classroom. We're not even having weekly classes like I would in my Monday night class. So really, if you're struggling, if you need help, this paper is really hard. So look at this example. This is probably one of the better essays I've gotten, just because this paper is really hard. Please don't take it lightly. Please work really hard at this paper, and just let me know if you have any questions or if there's any way I can help. I'm definitely willing. I just don't read minds. I don't want to read minds. I just need to know if you're struggling, need help, and I can definitely help you. So shoot me an email if you have any issues or questions about this essay in particular. But otherwise, have a good day.